Mr. Ambassador, good evening. Thank you for joining the program.
Bună seara, mulțumim pentru invitație.
To begin with, let me express my condolences for what happened to your country on the 7th of October.
Thank you.
At the same time, we're 2 months and a half into the retaliatory campaign that IDF is carrying in Gaza, and the death toll is grim. Over 20,000 civilians killed, among them 8,000 babies, children, not necessarily just babies. Over 52,000 people wounded, and very badly so. That's the toll provided by the Ministry of Health in Gaza, but backed by every single international organization that is present in Gaza, by the United Nations, and also by a very compelling study that was published at the beginning of this month in the prestigious magazine The Lancet, titled "There is no proof of inflated mortality in Gaza." My question to you, Mr. Ambassador, is at what number will you think that the killing of civilians is enough, that it's too many civilians killed in Gaza?
Well, indeed, it's very tragic what is happening in Gaza, and we regret the loss of every single life. In our culture, there is special meaning for every human being, and the Palestinian suffering is indeed great, but the responsibility for that lies only in the hands of Hamas, because what Hamas has been doing, not only they have attacked us atrociously on the 7th of October in a completely unprovoked way and committed terrible, terrible crimes against civilians, women, mutilations, rapes, we have seen that all, but they are using Palestinians as human shields. So what you see in terms of the civilian toll in the Gaza Strip has to do with misfiring of rockets by the Palestinians themselves that are completely indiscriminate, have to do with the fact that they are hiding. Actually, they have embedded themselves in hospitals, in schools. And you have to understand, we are not in the business here of counting the victims. What we are trying to do here is to act according to international law. This is what we are doing.
Are you? Because
yes.
You've just said that the sole responsibility lays in the hands of Hamas to protect civilians.
First of all, the responsibility for the death is in the hands of Hamas. Our responsibility is to act according to international law.
You don't feel responsible for any of those 20,000 people killed?
Regrettably, what happens usually in wars is, despite the fact that you act according to international law, some civilian life will be lost. Now, when you have a situation...
But we have 20,000 people.
Regrettably.
Look, more than in every conflict put together in the 20th century.
That's not
true. It's a study that was published by an Israeli newspaper, Haaretz.
Well, that's not
61% of the civilian deaths in airstrikes.
That's absolute nonsense, because we had only in the last few years conflicts in the Middle East in which the civilian toll was much higher. And again,
namely,
this is not Syria, for example. So we are not here about numbers.
What is very the Ukraine war has 10,000.
Give me an opportunity
10,000 civilian deaths in 2 years in Ukraine, for example.
If you'll give me an opportunity, I'll be able to answer you. Okay. Even in World War II, there were more deaths among the Germans, the Nazis, than among the Allies, and nobody counted the numbers of civilians. What counted is the fact that the military forces that act have to act according to international law, and that means 3 things. Okay, the first is that we have to act without being pinpointed at the military targets. So we target only military targets. We don't target civilian targets. Number 1.
Schools,
number 2,
hospitals.
Well, as I said, hospitals are completely protected under international humanitarian law unless they are being used as military bases. What happened, for example, in Shifa Hospital was that we had to target part of the hospital because it was used as a headquarters of Hamas. Yesterday, only yesterday, we just discovered that El Maadani Hospital in the Gaza Strip was actually an entire hospital working for Hamas, and all the staff there were Hamas people.
All the international media says about the Al-Shifa hospital that the proofs provided by the IDF were inconclusive as to it being a proper operational center of Hamas.
Well, we don't have to prove truth to the international media. We know, we have the facts, we have shared them with the United States. We have shared that with the United States. The United States approved the information that we shared with them. And there's no doubt whatsoever that Shifa Hospital was used for military purposes. This is unquestionable.
Do you feel alone with the United States against the world in this war?
No. We feel a lot of sympathy. We feel a lot of support, not only in the United States, but also in the West in general, in Europe. Yes, there are demonstrations in some capitals in Europe, but the governments and the people, according even to the polls, they support the complete eradication of Hamas. And we are going to continue to do it, only targeting military targets, doing it proportionately, and people sometimes don't understand what proportionality means. Proportionality means that you use the extent of force necessary to neutralize the potential threat that emanates from the people that are firing at you. When Hamas says, including the leaders after the 7th of October, that they are going to use any opportunity they have to conduct these attacks against Israel time and again, we have the duty, not only the right, we have the duty to completely eradicate the military capabilities of Hamas.
Refuting
and the civilian toll is only as a result of their attempt.
You were saying that you have the support of governments.
And also of peoples.
Of governments and people in the Western world, right?
Yes.
There was a UN resolution, General Assembly, 153 countries voted for a ceasefire, only 10 among Israel and the United States voted against it. All those 153 heads of state were wrong in what they did?
First of all, it's not the heads of state. Second of all, we know that in the UN there is...
The policy is dictated by the state, no?
The UN is completely biased, and you know that.
I don't know that. I know that the UN is the sole international organism that we in Europe are looking upon.
First of all, I think that it's good that Europe looks upon the UN and try to fix it in order for the UN to function properly. But what happens in the UN is that there is a bunch of dictatorships that have there is at least dozens of dictatorships. Dozens of dictatorships that are actually grouping in order to avoid any advancement of human rights and of what is fair. And what is happening in the UN time and again is that they are dealing, for example, with resolutions about human rights of Syrian women in the Golan Heights, while there are huge massacres in the world. It's completely unacceptable.
153 countries that voted in favor of a ceasefire?
Well, of course, it's natural to support a ceasefire, but we have to understand what is the price. Look, people want us to eradicate Hamas, also in Europe, because they know that if we don't do that, if we now put a complete ceasefire and Hamas remains and regroups and rearms, not only that this is going to threaten Israel, this is going to threaten Europe, this is going to threaten civilization. Because we cannot be in a situation in which a terrorist organization that behaves this way has impunity. So I can understand why people want a ceasefire. I want a ceasefire. But we understand, and our people is resolute. You have to understand that. Our people are resolute to completely remove this threat, because otherwise we will never have security. We won't be able to build our communities. We won't be able to come back.
Mr. Ambassador, you were saying that you're complying with the rules of war.
Of course.
At the same time, a U.S. intelligence assessment showed that you were using in Gaza 15,000 dumb bombs, unguided, imprecise, 900-kilo bombs in one of the most highly, densely populated areas in the world.
So
how is that consistent with the rules of war?
I will tell you. First of all, Israel is doing several things tactically to lower collateral damage.
Why haven't you been doing it from the very beginning?
We are doing it from the very beginning, and if you allow me, I will elaborate. Yes. Okay? First of all, we are using special ammunition that is actually pinpointed and doesn't have a wide. Usually, what you see in movies that you have explosives that go down and you have a wide effect.
Flame. Yeah.
They are much more pinpointed. We developed a technology for that. We are using tactics that no Western army has used. For example,
saying exactly the
knocking
contrary.
in the roof. Knocking in the roof is a tactic in which we send a
Have
warning.
you been using it in the war?
The building, of course,
You
all
were
the time.
not. The IDF was saying that
Yes,
it abandoned that,
we have done that.
technique in the first
We have done
week,
that.
maybe.
We have done that. We are continuing to do that. And we use these
You have
tactics
not done
selectively.
that, Mr. Ambassador. I'm sorry, you have not
No.
done that since the second week of war. The
Look,
IDF was saying it.
You can sound very authoritative and say all kinds of things that you cannot
It's
check.
an official statement of the IDF.
Okay. The IDF uses different kinds of ammunition and tactics according to the targets it is targeting. Okay? So we cannot use all the time the same tactics and the same ammunition. But the technologies we have developed in order to lower collateral damage are being taught by other Western armies. We have sent millions of messages to Palestinians to evacuate. Hamas was trying to block them from evacuation. We have sent leaflets. We have called people to leave. We have created a situation in which we actually try to prevent Hamas from blocking roads in order to prevent. We are creating humanitarian corridors every day in certain hours to allow people to go to and get water and food.
A New York Times assessment based on satellite imagery showed that now the area deemed safe by Israel is the size of the Heathrow airport. 2.5 million people have to take shelter in a place that's the size of the Heathrow airport. How is that humane to you?
Well, first of all, it's not all the population has to go there because we are only evacuating people from certain areas and not from all the area, number one. Number two, the fact that now this place is being used for safety. Once this place is full, we will find other places to evacuate people to safety. This is being done meticulously. We are sitting with international organizations every day, assessing the situation, making sure that enough water,
And
enough food
every day
enters.
Those organizations tell you that it's living hell in Gaza.
Of course it's living hell. What do you think? That war is a Garden of Eden? We are in a situation of war here. This is a very difficult situation. This is not a situation we chose. Actually, for the last 17 years, despite the fact that there was a terrorist organization controlling Gaza that was educating its people to eliminate Israel, that was getting all these weapons from Iran, we didn't go back to Gaza because we didn't want to do it. Democracies are about avoiding war. We wanted to avoid this war. This
And
war
about being held responsible and having obligations.
This war was actually imposed on us. And now we have to defend ourselves. This is very simple. We have to do it. If we don't do it, Hamas will regroup again. Again, we'll have to invade the Gaza Strip. Again, the Palestinians will suffer.
I agree. I agree to one point. Do you know the Jericho Wall report, which was a report that the IDF and Shin Bet received 1 year prior to the horrendous attacks from the 7th of October?
Yes.
That report described in great detail what Hamas was about to do. The heads of IDF, Shin Bet, dismissed it as completely impossible. Do you agree with me that if they had taken it into consideration more seriously and stopped the plot in its tracks, civilian lives on both sides would have been spared and we would not have this war?
Of course, there was an intelligence failure, no doubt. Look, this is not
So in this light,
mathematics.
Let me follow up to that question.
Yeah.
In this light, what sort of moral responsibility is Israel willing to take with regard to
Look, your question is ridiculous.
killing?
You're
Why is
saying,
it
look,
ridiculous?
your question is completely ridiculous. You are saying basically that because our intelligence failed, we have responsibility for the crimes of Hamas?
I'm asking you. I'm not
Okay.
saying anything. I'm asking if
so
you
what's
feel
your question?
any sort of moral responsibility
Look,
you dismissed that report. Your intelligence has dismissed that report, and we are in this situation
there is
right
nothing here about morality. You have to understand here. The moral failures are in the hands of the terrorists, the genocidal terrorists that want to eliminate the state of Israel and the Jewish people, and they are actually enslaving the civilian population to serve their cause. This is the moral failure. The moral failure is the fact that some people tend to concentrate in completely ridiculous points that have nothing to do with the severity of the crimes that Hamas committed. Now, of course, that we have to learn our lesson. We had an intelligence failure, we have an operational failure, and we had a strategic failure. because we should have taken care of Hamas years ago. And the fact that we didn't take care of Hamas, we didn't take back the Gaza Strip and completely eliminated Hamas, has to do with the fact that Israelis don't like wars. We didn't want to go back to the Gaza Strip. We wanted to create a situation in which Gaza reigns itself and finds itself a path in the future without attacking Israel. But the fact of the matter is that Hamas didn't choose that path. They chose the path of attacking Israel, and therefore we had to retaliate.
Do you consider every person in Gaza to be a terrorist?
Of course not.
Is there a pervasive mentality in the IDF, for example, that every person in Gaza is a terrorist? Because I'm thinking of the killing of your people, the 3 Israeli hostages that signaled clearly that they are civilians. They were shirtless, in their underwear, waving a white flag and yelling in Hebrew, help. Still, they got shot. I cannot imagine how many times it has happened before with Palestinian civilians who could not speak Hebrew.
Right. First of all,
is there a pervasive mentality that everybody in Gaza is a terrorist?
Look, you have to understand that this is a very precarious situation with soldiers that are, after 70 days of war, depriving sleep, depriving food, and sometimes the judgment of soldiers is wrong. You don't have robots there, you have human beings, okay? So you have to take into account that from time to time there will be mistakes. Actually, in average, in every conventional army in the war, in every conventional war in the past, there is between 20 and 30% of actually damage that has to do with killings that are killed by their own army, okay? So this is happening also in the Gaza Strip. Now, of course, the Palestinian population, there is a lot of people that are uninvolved, even if there's a situation in which many Palestinians support Hamas. But we are using the principle of distinction. We are not, claiming that the entire population are terrorists, not at all. On the contrary, we think that the population should be protected. We are taking a lot of measures in order to see that it happens. But unfortunately, what Hamas leaders have said, actually, publicly, is that they want to use the blood of children and of women for the national cause, in order to get support from the world. They are doing the sacrifice because they know that this actually mobilizes sympathy towards the Palestinian people. We found 2 days ago a huge tunnel of 4 kilometers, and if Hamas wanted, actually they could put all the population underground. But instead of putting the population underground and getting them to safety, that's what we are doing. That's what normal people are doing. They use the tunnels for themselves. They prevented the Palestinian population from entering the tunnels to guard themselves. And in this way, they actually killed their own population.
Tell me about the post-war plans. Who's going to rule Gaza?
Well, that's a good question. We don't have, as you probably heard until now, Israel has no interest whatsoever of ruling the Gaza Strip. The question really is how you get into a situation in which Hamas doesn't rearm and regroup in the Gaza Strip, okay? And that's a very difficult task. We are consulting about this with the United States. We are going to partner with other countries. Only yesterday, our foreign minister was in Cyprus. We are trying to create a situation in which logistically, maybe we can supply Gaza not only from our own borders and from Egypt, but also from Cyprus. There are many things that can be done, but you have to understand, if we remove Hamas, and Hamas does not have the chance to educate another generation of people to be terrorists, then we stand a chance maybe of stability in the long term.
Your Prime Minister is talking a lot about security guarantees and control in Gaza post-war. What does that even mean?
Well, it means that first of all, we will have, this war has 3 stages. The first stage was operation from the air. The second stage is the intensity warfare that we are experiencing now. That is going to take a few more weeks. And then there's going to be a stabilization period in which we will be making sure that all the tunnels, all the infrastructure, all the Hamas operatives, they are either arrested, they surrender, or they are killed.
For how long do you plan
This can take many months. We said it at the outset. This can take many months.
Until the operation is finished, you mean?
Until
many months.
Yeah, until
but
we
then
make
afterwards,
sure.
I'm asking you,
well,
how long are you planning to,
well, it
keep
depends.
those security
Look,
controls?
we are, as you probably remember, under the Oslo agreements, there were 3 kinds of territories. Okay, we initiated, if you remember, Palestinians.
Let's not go back to the background because we don't have enough time. I'm asking you for the future.
I'm using that to tell you what is going to happen in the future. Under Oslo, there were three kinds of territories, A, B, and C. A are territories that are completely controlled by the Palestinian Authority, including security. That is out of the question right now. It can come back in the future if there is a reliable partner. There is Area B,
Who's going to be a reliable partner? Is the Palestinian Authority going to rule Gaza?
Well, we hope, and President Biden said, that if the Palestinian Authority reforms itself and stop supporting terrorism, yes, they can be a reliable partner. So Area B will be the area in which Israeli has overriding security responsibility, but the Palestinians control their daily lives. And Area C is area that is completely controlled by Israel. We don't plan to have Area C in the Gaza Strip. We don't want to go back to the Gaza Strip. So it's either going to be...
Is there going to be a governmental policy to finance settlements in Gaza, like in the West Bank, for example? Settlements that, by the way, are deemed illegal by the United States, the United Nations.
Well, if you want, I can open the issue of settlements, but we are not going to build settlements in the Gaza Strip. And this was clearly stated by the government, including this right-wing government.
Do you know how many Hamas terrorists are there right now in the Gaza Strip? Because you're saying the complete elimination of Hamas. Our assessment is that we have managed to kill many thousands of Hamas terrorists. We believe, and we have arrested many more. We believe that there are still thousands going out. We feel that as this operation continues, many of them will surrender. There are people that are affiliated with Hamas, but in a different way. For example, people that have been paid by Hamas salaries in the government. We are going to make sure that these people are not part of the new government. And those that are part of the Palestinian self-rule are going to be only those that were before Hamas took power in 2007. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for joining the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Marius.